The Black Hills of South Dakota, among the oldest mountains in North America, home to Mount Rushmore, a place where the spirit of the Old West lives on. Mount Rushmore National Memorial, America's beloved shrine of democracy, is one of our country's most inspiring sights. It's a personification in stone of basic American ideals. In addition, the story of its creation affords a superb example of artistic drive on a colossal scale. And far from least, it's the focal point for visitors to a major vacation land, the Black Hills of South Dakota. The idea of creating a gigantic carving here was first proposed in 1923 by Don Robinson, South Dakota state historian. He invited Gutzon Borglum, a prominent American sculptor, to the Black Hills. Borglum's previous work indicated that he could plan and execute sculpture on a heroic scale. The area was searched for a suitable location. Originally, Robinson had envisioned a memorial to some of America's notable Western figures, Lewis and Clark perhaps, and John C. Fremont. It would be a fitting tribute, and it would also attract visitors and aid the state's economy. But Borglum believed the proposed monument should be of national, not regional significance, and suggested the likenesses of several presidents. At last, the sculptor found the place he was looking for. The site was Mount Rushmore. Its granite was smooth-grained and would take carving well. Its massive cliffs faced the sun most of the day and dominated the surrounding landscape. On October 1st, 1925, with a crowd of 3,000 onlookers gathered at the base of the mountain, the sculptor planted a dedicatory American flag on its summit. 4 presidents were finally chosen for the carving: George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Theodore Roosevelt. From his sculpture studio, Borglum explains to Don Robinson what the sculpture on Mount Rushmore will look like.
In 1924, I'd rather show you the work as we're doing it on the mountain. I'd be glad to see it. This is a 6-foot head. And the head on the mountain is 60 feet, and I can explain to you there exactly how we enlarged it. Come and go with me, won't you? You can see this from here, you see, Mr. Robinson. That stone to that side would be Lincoln, and the one on the other side, Jefferson. And that is 60 feet in height. And the weight
After the surface rock was carefully blasted away with dynamite, men in slings scrambled across the new surface to chip off excess granite with jackhammers and additional explosives. When the carving was within a few inches of the finished surface, shallow holes were drilled and additional rock was chipped off with a hammer and wedge. The surface was then smoothed with small air hammers. Washington's face, though still incomplete, was unveiled on July 4th, 1930. Jefferson's face was begun to the left of Washington's, but fissures were found in the rock and it was dynamited away in 1933. Borglum, with his son Lincoln, oversaw the entire project. The carving followed Borglum's 20-foot model, with each measurement enlarged 12 times and then transferred to the mountain. 9 changes in the positions of the figures were required as unexpected weaknesses were discovered in the rock. By the summer of 1936, Jefferson's face was ready for dedication, and President Franklin D. Roosevelt officiated.
10,000 years from now, I think we can meditate and wonder whether our descendants, because I think they'll still be here, what they will think about us. And let us hope that at least they will give us the benefit of the doubt, that they will believe that we have honestly striven in our day and generation to preserve for our descendants a decent land to live in and a decent form of government to operate under.
Borglum believed that the final sculpture could be a harmonious unit only if the 4 heads were developed in relation to each other. Carving, therefore, continued simultaneously on all 4. There were still catwalks and cables on the face in 1941 as the memorial neared its present form. The buildings on top were workshops and storehouses. After the initial stunning view of the 4 great faces high up on the mountain, visitors soon discovered that these portraits in stone are astonishingly human and lifelike. The realism of their expressions is partly due to the 22-inch rock projections carved into each eye, providing a natural highlight or sparkle when viewed from a distance. More than 450,000 tons of rock were dynamited from the face of the mountain. That, along with the rest of the granite that was chipped off by hand, still lies where it fell in the man-made talus at Rushmore's base. The volume of the rock removed is about twice that used to construct Egypt's Great Sphinx, and the head of that ancient monument measures slightly less than the length of Washington's nose. The 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore symbolize fundamental aspects of the American spirit. We are descended from people who, in Guts Borglum's words, fled despotism to people a continent, who built an empire and rewrote the philosophy of freedom, and compelled the world to accept its wiser, happier forms of government. George Washington, our country's leader during the perilous years of the Revolution, and later as first president, has the dominant position. Washington represents the struggle for independence, the creation of the Constitution, and the birth of the Republic. No one else during those critical times contributed more to this country's cause. Thomas Jefferson, principal author of the Declaration of Independence, symbolizes government by the people. Jefferson also sponsored the Lewis and Clark expedition, which crossed the Rockies to the Pacific, extending the country from sea to shining sea. Abraham Lincoln led America through the Civil War and was chief architect of the reunited nation. He represents the permanent union of the states. In his steadfast dedication to personal liberty, he championed equality for all American citizens. Theodore Roosevelt, an Easterner who loved the West, symbolizes the bonds that link our country together. Roosevelt, a vigorous personality and a dynamic speaker, represents the rise of the United States to prominence in world affairs. He knew the glorious scenic areas of the West firsthand. He was one of our staunchest early conservationists and formulated concepts that are still part of National Park Service policy. It's interesting to note that in the carving, Roosevelt's spectacles are clearly defined only near his nose and are just suggested around the eyes, yet they are very realistic. In the historic sculpture studio, visitors can see the 20-foot-high sculpture created by Gutzon Borglum. He used this working model as a guide to carve the mountain.
The working model is not complete. It is more complete than the mountain, but that's because John Gutzon Borglum created the model to appear as the mountain should eventually look. The model contains the hand of Lincoln, which wasn't completed on the mountain, the hand of Jefferson. It also has more full busts down to the waistcoats, and it also has more of the busts themselves of each of the presidents in the round. The sculpture studio is the second studio that was built on site at Mount Rushmore. The studio was finished in 1939 by John Gutzon Borglum. He used the studio to construct his models and to do administration of the memorial itself.
Some of Borglum's carving tools and other artifacts are on display. This plaster mask of Lincoln was used as a visual reference by workers on the mountain. The model of Gutzon Borglum's Hall of Records design was carved by his son Lincoln.
The model was to represent his father's dream of a completion of the Hall of Records up on the mountain in a canyon off at the faces. This would have held documents like the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and other important documents. It could have only been opened by Congress, and it was meant to be left as a reminder for people to find for future generations.
The sculptor has realized on a spectacular scale Doane Robinson's proposal to have a stupendous carving on a granite peak in the Black Hills. Over 2 million people from every state in the Union and from all over the world visit Mount Rushmore each year. The enormous popularity the region enjoys today surely exceeds anything either man might have dreamed of. Black Hills National Forest, which surrounds Mount Rushmore, stretches for more than 100 miles north to south along the border between South Dakota and Wyoming. The Peter Norbeck Byway is famous for its pigtail curves where the road doubles back over itself. Several tunnels provide striking frames for Mount Rushmore. There are lakes and streams for boating and fishing, a large number of campgrounds, and numerous wildlife. Just south of Mount Rushmore is Custer State Park. It was named for General George Custer, who led the first extensive exploration of the Black Hills beginning in 1874. The discovery of gold by the Custer expedition brought a population explosion to the Black Hills. These hills and valleys were soon crowded with prospectors looking for their pots of gold. This area of 72,000 acres was designated as Custer State Park in 1919. It has become a safe haven for wildlife and wildflowers, and a popular attraction for Black Hills visitors. Scenic Needles Drive, which provides access to the area, passes through 2 tunnels and reaches an elevation over 6,000 feet. It was the Needles area that Doane Robinson had in mind when he proposed a gigantic sculpture. But Gutzon Borglum found the granite here too fractured and weathered for large-scale carving. Nature, however, has been carving these rocks for centuries. A popular day hike in the Needles area leads to majestic cathedral spires. This natural wonder provides inspiration for the many who visit it each year. This is the Needles Eye, a remarkable formation directly beside the road. Sylvan Lake is the oldest man-made lake in the Black Hills and one of the loveliest. It's located in the northwest corner of Custer State Park. Abundant fishing and striking rock formations make the Sylvan Lake area very popular with visitors. Nearby Harney Peak, with an elevation of 7,242 feet, is the highest mountain in South Dakota. The Game Lodge in Custer State Park has been a vacation headquarters for both Presidents Coolidge and Eisenhower. It's a pleasant country inn with rooms, cabins, and a fine dining room. A scenic drive on Wildlife Loop Road takes you through the southern half of Custer State Park. A common sight as you travel down Wildlife Loop Road is one of the park's many burros. Brought from Mexico in the 1920s to take people to the top of Harney Peak, these burros now roam wild here. Just off the Wildlife Loop Road, the French Creek Natural Area offers visitors an adventurous retreat from summer crowds. Lush vegetation makes this a special place for those who want to enjoy the solitude of nature. Bighorn sheep may be spotted along the banks of French Creek, grazing on grass and shrubs. Rams may weigh as much as 275 pounds and grow thick coiled horns up to an impressive 3 feet long. Ewes have slightly curved horns and weigh roughly half as much. Bighorn once roamed freely in higher elevations throughout the West, but have disappeared from much of their original range because of hunting, disease, and competition from grazers such as domestic cattle and sheep. Through careful park management, a prospering herd now makes its home in Custer State Park. A variety of wildflowers enhances the park's scenery in early spring and summer. Custer State Park is home to one of North America's largest herds of bison. By the end of the last century, these great shaggy animals had nearly become extinct, thanks to thoughtless and terrible slaughter that took place all over the Great Plains. Now, however, through careful management here and in other herds protected on federal and state preserves, their numbers have increased. To the casual observer, bison usually appear peaceful, unconcerned, even lazy. Yet they are wild and powerful animals and should not be approached. They can outrun, outturn, and traverse rougher terrain better than all but the fleetest horse. They can move at speeds up to 35 miles per hour and cover long distances at a deceptively fast lumbering gallop. The highlight of the fall season in Custer State Park is the Bison Roundup. One of America's largest bison herds comes thundering over the horizon, as they may have done in centuries past. No story about the Black Hills would be complete without mentioning the famous black-tailed prairie dogs. These sociable wild animals can be found here in Custer and many other parts of the Black Hills. They live in underground communities commonly called prairie dog towns that may be as big as 100 acres in size. Small family groups or coteries of one male and several females live in a labyrinth of burrows. This underground maze provides safety from predators such as hawks, coyotes, and snakes. The squeaky cries and charming antics of these little creatures endear them to everyone. Adjoining the southern border of Custer State Park is Wind Cave National Park. Two worlds, seemingly living separate lives, are found here. Above ground, a vast open prairie where small amounts of rainfall and low elevation have formed this seemingly endless sea of grass. Below ground, a mysterious, dark world filled with geological wonders is waiting to be discovered. Geologically, Wind Cave is one of the oldest caves in North America. More than 38 miles of passageways have been explored since its discovery in 1881. The cave is named for the breeze that blows through the entrance, blowing out when the atmospheric pressure outside is lower than inside, and blowing in when the pressures are the reverse. During cave tours, park rangers tell of early and present-day exploration and explain how the cave was formed.
It's kind of neat to think about that. Try to imagine how long the ocean covered this part of the continent. To lay down this much limestone.
Up close, you can see thin, honeycomb-shaped calcite fins called boxwork. This very rare formation was formed when groundwater carrying dissolved chemicals leaked into small interlacing cracks in the limestone and crystallized as calcite. The surrounding limestone eventually dissolved away, leaving these remarkable calcite fins. Wind Cave has the largest known display of boxwork in the world. Another interesting kind of formation is popcorn, a knobby white incrustation formed by the evaporation of mineral-laden water after it has seeped through tiny pores in the surrounding limestone. Above ground, Wind Cave National Park may appear deceptively empty. But take a closer look. With over 28,000 acres of protected grasslands and ponderosa pine forest, it's actually full of life and activity. Here, bison, pronghorn, and other animals roam freely as they once did throughout the West. Like the ocean, the vast prairie seems to distort human perspectives of distance, time, and scale. Though outwardly similar to African or Asian antelope, pronghorn are really unique to North America. In fact, pronghorn are not closely related to any living species. Both sexes have horns, but the females are mere spikes and are rarely pronged, as are the 12 to 18-inch long horns of the male. The horn is made up of two parts, a bony core covered by a black outer sheath. This sheath is made up of a stiff, hair-like substance. The outer sheath falls off each fall and grows back by the following summer. Pronghorns generally stay in the open. They rely on keen eyesight to spot danger and quickness to avoid it. They can reach speeds up to 50 miles per hour. The prairie provides such an abundance of nutritious and readily available food. It is little wonder that it is heavily populated. Unfortunately, this environment poses one serious problem for animals. There's no place to hide from danger. To meet this challenge, the animals use speed, strength, burrowing, and even social behavior. At Wind Cave, you can see a small remnant of the open plains that once stretched endlessly across the horizon, and imagine the scene that greeted westward-bound 19th century pioneers. Jewel Cave National Monument is located west of Custer State Park. Interesting geological exhibits are displayed in the visitor center, and several different cave tours are offered. All of the tours feature the diamond-like sparkling calcite crystals that cover many of Jewel Cave's chamber walls. The scenic tour visits chambers filled with stalactites, stalagmites, and draperies of rock formed when water trickled down a slanted ceiling. The historic tour follows the paths that early cave explorers Frank and Albert Michaud may have taken around 1900. In 1908, the site became a national monument. Today, many people are surprised to learn that after Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, Jewel is the second longest cave in the United States.
Years for us to study, learn about. So it's nice that they introduced the rest of the thing.
Just a few miles from Mount Rushmore, another modern wonder of the world is taking shape. The Crazy Horse Memorial. The great Indian chief is being immortalized in stone as a tribute to the North American Indian.
Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole!
Crazy Horse is now being brought to life from a huge granite monolith with jackhammers and drills, supersonic torches, giant bulldozers, and high explosives. The creator of the Crazy Horse Memorial, Korczak Julkowski, was a Boston-born sculptor of Polish descent. His distinguished work prompted Sioux Indian chief Standing Bear to invite him to carve this grand colossus. In describing the Indians' choice of Crazy Horse, Standing Bear wrote, "My fellow chiefs and I would like the white man to know the red man has great heroes also." At the dedication on June 3, 1948, Korczak promised that Crazy Horse would be a non-profit educational and cultural humanitarian project, financed by the interested public, not by government tax money. He was 74 years old when he passed away in 1982. But throughout 36 years of back-breaking work on the mountain, Korczak kept his promise. He twice refused $10 million in potential federal funding. Korczak's humanitarian goals for Crazy Horse include the beautiful Indian Museum of North America, already an attraction in its own right, and the planned University and Medical Training Center for the North American Indian. Crazy Horse visitors can witness the mountain carvings slowly evolving before their eyes. Today's squadron of modern-day carving equipment is a far cry from the old days. In the beginning, Korczak had to build a 741-step wooden staircase to get to the top of the mountain. There he labored single-handedly with a small jackhammer and a less than reliable air compressor.
The old Buddha, the old compressor, was kind of decrepit, and I'd get sometimes quarter of the way up, and I'd just hear that thing go kaput, 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 kaput. Put everything down, walk all the way down the staircase, start her up again, crank her up, wait there 5 minutes, start up the mountain, pick everything up, go up to the top, which is quite a distance, put all my things down, get my air valve cleaned out, oil the hammer, pick it up, get my starter steel in it. Just start to drill one hole, get down about a foot, and you could hear the big Buddha, kaput, kaput, kaput. Down I'd go again. One day I did that 9 times. You know, that gets awful old.
When finished, the mountain carving will look like Korczak's dramatic scale model, depicting Crazy Horse as a proud symbol representing all Native Americans. Pointing over his horse's head, Crazy Horse is proclaiming for the ages, "My lands are where my dead lie buried." Progress at Crazy Horse is measured in tons and in decades. Crazy Horse project could take several lifetimes to complete. Korchak made scale models, and with his wife Ruth, prepared comprehensive plans and measurements to be used by the following generations of dreamers. Today, Korchak's wife and many of their 10 sons and daughters are among those continuing to realize his awe-inspiring and visionary dream, ensuring that the Crazy Horse dream becomes reality.
I want to tell the world that there was once a race of people that lived here that were remarkable. I am a storyteller in stone.
In Korchak's words, it will take many years to complete, maybe many lifetimes, but Crazy Horse can and will be completed, because it's right that it should be done. The Black Hills of the 1880s was a rambunctious time and place. To these hills came the invading miners to dig their shafts and drive their tunnels and build their towns. One famous old mining town that has preserved many buildings from the end of the last century is Deadwood. Deadwood sprang up when gold was found here in 1876. And thousands of people rushed in to wash the yellow dust and nuggets from the gravel of Deadwood Gulch. It was a lawless, rough and ready place then. And today you can still experience what life was like here in the heyday of the Old West. Many colorful characters, including the legendary Wild Bill Hickok and Calamity Jane, once ruled over Deadwood and are known to every American schoolchild. Now they rest forever in Boot Hill Cemetery on Mount Moriah in Deadwood. The stones that mark their graves are small monuments, but their names alone are enough to conjure images of a time and place never to be forgotten. The gold rush of the 1870s lasted only a short time, but it helped give birth to Deadwood and 100 other towns throughout the Black Hills. Gold mining proved to be difficult and expensive. Many areas were abandoned after gold veins were played out. A few small operations lasted through World War II, and those mine buildings that remain have fallen to ruin. But there is one dramatic exception to gold stories with unhappy endings: the Homestake Gold Mine in Lead. The Homestake offers fascinating year-round tours through the mine's surface workings, and visitors can report to friends at home that they've actually been in a gold mine. Inside, huge electric hoists haul people in and out of the mine, while conveyor belts take crushed ore to be processed. Underground, miners work in hundreds of miles of tunnels that reach depths of 8,000 feet. The Homestake surface operation uses conventional open-pit methods. Over 350,000 ounces of gold, worth millions of dollars, is brought out of the Homestake mine each year. Lead and Deadwood are two Black Hills towns that survived the gold rush and have been able to preserve with pride their heritage from frontier days. A highlight for many who visit the Black Hills is the historical excursion on the Hill City 1880 train. Originally laid to service the numerous mines and mills between Hill City and Keystone. With 2 steam locomotives and many vintage cars, the Hill City 1880 train is a virtual museum on rails. Steam pours from the engine as the old locomotive begins its 2-hour round trip between Hill City and Keystone. Passengers may ride in either closed coaches or open observation cars. As the locomotive rumbles through rugged terrain, you will experience the splendor of the Black Hills. Climb some of the steepest grades in North America and enjoy spectacular mountain scenery. The Hill City 1880 train is a living symbol of the great American West. In Hot Springs, South Dakota, is the Mammoth Site. Here you can experience a much earlier time in history. During the last part of the Ice Age, over 100 mammoths and other animals became permanently trapped in a large, spring-fed sinkhole near the southern end of the Black Hills. 26,000 years later, the Mammoth Site is one of the most astonishing and unique paleontological finds ever discovered. The site is important to scientists because it contains the greatest concentration of Columbian and woolly mammoth skeletons in their natural habitat. A guided tour is the best way to take in the fine interpretive programs at the Mammoth Site. The only place in America where the bones of prehistoric giants are left undisturbed, allowing visitors a first-hand look at a working paleontological site. A visit here provides a fascinating and educational glimpse into the distant past. Like artists sculpting a fine statue, researchers carefully reveal fossilized skeletons of mammoth and other ancient animals such as camels, giant short-faced bears, and antelope. In addition to animal fossils, pollen samples are helping scientists determine what the environment was like 26,000 years ago. The Mammoth Site is well tailored for younger family members as well. Junior paleontologists could get an education in mapping techniques, field note preparation, and how to identify mammoth bones at their own hands-on excavation site. As this prehistoric world unfolds, the Mammoth Site continues to serve as a model of success for other archaeological and paleontological sites across the United States. Just south of the town of Wall is Badlands National Park, a weirdly eroded area of deeply gullied hills. Here, the forces of erosion unravel mysteries of the past as they gradually erode both sedimentary and volcanic layers of soft rock into pinnacles and hills in an endless variety of strange forms. Countless numbers of ancient animals once roamed this area, and their fossilized remains make the Badlands one of the richest scientific fossil beds known to humans. Superb fossils such as saber-toothed cats and early ancestors of the rhinoceros have been found here. These animals roamed the Badlands from 25 million to 40 million years ago. Like an exotic kaleidoscope, the patterns and colors of these hills change right before your eyes. Although Badlands is famous for its stark, almost moon-like appearance, it also includes the largest area of protected grasslands of any national park. In 1976, Congress set aside over 64,000 acres of the park as the Sage Creek Wilderness Area. This section of the park is preserved in its most natural state, while allowing hikers and backpackers to enjoy the wilderness experience. One of the most recognizable and distinctive geologic landmarks in the continental United States is Devil's Tower. In 1906, President Theodore Roosevelt proclaimed Devil's Tower the first national monument in the United States. It's located in the northeast corner of Wyoming, at the western edge of the Black Hills region. The tower rises nearly 1,300 feet above a grassy valley. The huge formation originated underground when a great upward bulge of molten rock cooled and hardened. It was later exposed as the softer rock around it eroded away. Its fluted sides are composed of natural columns of rock, many of which have fallen away and lie broken around the base. The monument includes a museum and gift shop. At the end of any tour of this magnificent area, the visitor's mind inevitably returns to Mount Rushmore. Many years ago, an eloquent Gutzon Borglum best expressed the feelings of all Americans about this national memorial. "Let us place there, carved high," he said, "as close to heaven as we can, our leaders, their faces to show posterity what manner of men they were. Then breathe a prayer that these records will endure until the wind and the rain alone shall wear them away."